Why are there so many different Sufi orders? Some are known for their whirling, others for silent contemplation. Some hold large musical gatherings, while others operated as disciplined military units. On the surface, they all seem random, so this raises the question, why are their expressions so different? Orientalists, viewing from the outside, often reduce the origins of these orders to the notion that each teacher merely had a different personality or that local culture shaped their style. This is a limited and overly simplified view, which is common in colonial narratives, as it overlooks the deeper political and socio-economic forces that gave rise to Sufi orders and sustained them for centuries. Today we are going to dive deep and explain what Muslims have long forgotten. Sufi orders weren't accidents, they were engineered with precision to reshape entire societies. But to understand them, we must first remember why they came about in the first place. We have to go back to the 11th century, right before the formation of Sufi orders, a time when the world was undergoing rapid change. This video will be longer than usual, because the cultural gap between Muslims today and their own intellectual heritage is so vast it almost defies belief. In the 11th century, advances in agriculture and the expansion of maritime trade routes brought great wealth to many regions in the Muslim world, especially in major cities like Cairo, Damascus, Cordoba, and Baghdad. For the first time, common people began to experience a cosmopolitan lifestyle once reserved for elites. It was an unprecedented era that brought new wealth but also new moral, social, and psychological challenges, as human behavior and society itself grew more complex. Yet this prosperity often came with a steep decline in the moral fabric of society. Historians like Ibn Kathir write how the ideals that were once associated with Islam, such as justice and ethical responsibilities towards the poor and disadvantaged, were increasingly absent from civic life. The Seljuks were the main powerhouse of the Muslim world at the time. They were Turkic tribes from Central Asia who had recently embraced Sunni Islam. And by the mid-11th century, they controlled vast territories stretching from Central Asia to the Eastern Mediterranean. The Seljuks saw themselves as defenders of Sunni orthodoxy and political order in the Muslim world. Seeking to consolidate their position against their Shia rivals, they confronted not only a military threat but also an ideological one. The Fatimids actively built a network of religious institutions and missionary efforts, seeking to establish their sect as the leading expression of Islam. In response, the Seljuks established the Nizamiya schools, state-sponsored centers of higher learning designed to strengthen Sunni scholarship, unify doctrine, and revive the moral and ethical substance of Islam through a top-down approach. But much like today, top-down attempts to build a moral society rarely succeed. The Seljuks' grand project was ultimately not successful. Once the Fatimid threat receded and Seljuk power stood unchallenged, the driving force behind the Nizamiya vision, Nizam al-Mulk himself, was assassinated. Without his leadership, the schools he had founded began to lose their original purpose. What had been elite institutions, united by a clear moral and intellectual mission, gradually devolved into arenas for rivalry between juristic schools, where scholars competed for state appointments and the privileges that came with them. Sincere scholars, who had shared Nizam al-Mulk's higher vision of reforming the moral and ethical fiber of society, steadily drifted away and isolated themselves. Among them was Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. Going through his own spiritual journey, al-Ghazali firmly came to see that Sufism was the inner dimension of Islam that society desperately needed. What was missing was not more rules, but the transformative spirit of the faith. Islam was meant to produce morally refined individuals, and al-Ghazali realized that true transformation could only be achieved through Sufi knowledge. In his monumental work, Ihya Ulum al-Din, he wove this spiritual depth into the framework of the Sharia, seeking to reunite outward practice with inward transformation. Over time, he also came to another sobering realization. The greatest crisis in the Muslim world was not among the common people, but among the scholars themselves. As the inheritors of the prophets, they were meant to guide and heal society, yet he found many spiritually diseased, unable to cure even themselves. This recognition convinced him that true reform had to begin with the scholars. Determined to address this, he returned to his hometown of Tus in 1106 CE to establish a small school where he could train a new generation of scholars, men who were spiritually purified, intellectually rigorous, and able to unite the inner and outer dimensions of Islam. But his life was cut short before his vision could be fully realized. The seeds Al-Ghazali planted came to full bloom in the work of Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. His school embodied the very ideals Al-Ghazali had longed for, an institution that was completely resistant to top-down authority, rooted in service to the poor and disadvantaged, and fearless in championing their cause. Abdul Qadir al-Jilani keenly understood the dangers of conflicts of interest and power dynamics, building safeguards into the very fabric of his institution to keep it free from political influence. In this protected environment, he nurtured students to be resilient, inwardly purified, unwavering in their commitment to the Quran and Sunnah, and above all, answerable to no one but God. In doing so, he not only fulfilled Al-Ghazali's vision, but set a new benchmark for moral and spiritual leadership in the Muslim world. Historians generally regard the Qadiri order as the first fully organized Sufi order in the form we recognize today. Earlier Sufi masters such as Dhul Nun and Junaid al-Baghdadi had students to whom they passed on their teachings, but these were informal circles without a lasting institutional framework. The Qadiriyya was the first of its kind, a place designed to produce the ideal scholar, one deeply rooted in the Islamic sciences and committed to serving the people. In a way, the school was modeled after the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in its structure, as it placed a moral example at the center who serves humanity, while the students actively modeled themselves with his living presence to achieve both moral perfection and mastery of the Islamic sciences. Both Abdul Qadir Jilani and Al-Ghazali understood one thing very clearly: moral character was considered even more essential than book knowledge, for a scholar without morals could cause greater harm than an ignorant person who doesn't wield the same authority. Muslims today often fail to recognize the sheer scale of influence of Sheikh Abdul Qadir's school and the profound ripple effect it had on Muslim societies for centuries. After Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani's death, the school took his name and was replicated across many regions. By the 13th century, the Qadiriyya had spread throughout the Muslim world, setting the template for later Sufi orders and, in the process, surpassing the number of Shia Muslims through their remarkable ability to convert vast populations peacefully. For centuries, this model, built around a living institution whose crown jewel was an exemplar embodying the true morals of Islam both inwardly and outwardly, served as a moral anchor for Muslim societies across a vast and diverse world. These orders were far more than spiritual circles. They evolved into sustained trans-regional institutions that shaped the daily life of entire communities. In their khanqahs and zawiyas, they provided education for the young, charity for the poor, mediation in disputes, and moral guidance for all. They were not just for scholars, they were above all for the common people. Merchants, tradesmen, farmers, and craftsmen all found in them a path to perfect themselves, so they could work together to build a just and ethical society rooted in the principles of the Quran. By training both scholars and ordinary people to live by these principles, they created a moral movement that rulers could not easily corrupt. This independence is where the so-called non-political nature of Sufis truly came from. They were not non-political because they ignored the injustices of their time. On the contrary, they maintained justice within their own societies. Their focus was on ensuring that rulers operated within the bounds of the Sharia. Beyond that, it mattered little to them whether the sovereign was Seljuk, Ottoman, Mamluk, or Ayyubid. For in the end, every ruler was as answerable to Allah as any other. This distinction is often misunderstood today, with non-political wrongly equated to passive disengagement, when in reality it was an active stance rooted in preserving moral order over political allegiance. Their reach extended from the bustling capitals of empires to the most remote villages, forming a continuous network where travelers found shelter, the poor found support, and ordinary people found both learning and spiritual companionship. In many ways, they pioneered a type of social institution the world had never seen before, one that united the sacred, the civic, and the communal under a single moral vision. But how could something so essential vanish from the cultural memory of Muslims today? This cultural gap is no accident. Colonialism was as much an informational project as it was a military one, systematically erasing the memory of such institutions. As a result, many Muslims today are not only disconnected from their own intellectual history, but remain completely unaware that what they built was unprecedented in history. Sufi orders were independent institutions that created vast networks of schools, hospices, and community centers, educating the young, caring for the poor, mediating disputes, and upholding a moral authority beyond the reach of political corruption. In many ways, this was inevitable, as such a model stands in direct opposition to the values of capitalist societies that ultimately produce fragmented communities, transactional relationships, and moral authority that bends to wealth and power. But the question still remains, why did Sufi orders differ so much from one another? They differed because each one arose in a specific community, at a specific moment in history, shaped by the unique challenges of its surroundings. The uniqueness of the order mainly arose from its teachings, which were never generic, as Sufism has no predefined dogma. These teachings emerged from the living exchange between a master and his disciples, crafted to meet the precise psychological and social needs of their community. In a bustling merchant city, a Sufi master might serve humanity by organizing trade guilds and instilling ethical principles drawn from the Quran and Sunnah. In a volatile frontier, a sheikh could transmit his guidance through the ideals of futuwah, Islamic chivalry, cultivating courage, discipline, and unity among his followers. In essence, Sufi orders were vehicles, what we might today call organizations, rooted in their time and place, which Sufi masters used as instruments to instill morality and the principles of justice in those who aspired to serve society. These differences were not signs of disunity, but the result of deliberate design, spiritual transformation tailored to each time and place. Yet Sufi orders did not always preserve their essence. Some deteriorated, others were co-opted by the state, or fell under the control of false and deluded men. The authentic orders that endured did so because they continued to produce true Sufis, and those Sufis in turn remained committed to serving their communities. At their core, however, all had the same mission: to form people of deep God consciousness who could transform the moral character of their societies and devote their lives to the service of Islam. They looked different only because of time, place, and people. If this opened your eyes, share it, because the real history of Sufi orders won't spread itself.